everybody. I am Drew Duncan, and this is Late Night Sports Talk. Chiefs, Chargers, hell of a game tonight, right? The final score actually didn't indicate how close that game was or wasn't. A lot of back and forth in that game for the most part. The Chargers were up 17-7 at one point. Kansas City basically ends up outscoring LA down the road 20-7. You know, there's a couple of things that stand out to me in that football game. Okay. Number one, the fact of the matter is, like I said, LA up 17-7, Kansas City figures out a way to get it done. So they do. They end up winning the football game. They're at home. They take advantage of that crowd to some extent. But I think Justin Herbert getting hurt later on in that football game really played an integral part in how the game ended up being turned out. You know, Herbert getting hurt really reminded me of Andrew Luck, right? Andrew Luck played with lacerations against the Denver Broncos. I think it was 27 lacerations in the stomach. To put it in perspective, people die from that. Legitimately, they die from that. Andrew Luck gutted it out against the Denver Broncos, and we could see Justin Herbert very vividly wincing in pain. Whatever that injury is, he gutted it the hell out. When we start going down the list of really good quarterbacks, and not just the AFC West, but the NFL as a whole, we've got to start talking about Justin Herbert. I know that there are a lot of people that believe that maybe he's overhyped, but very clearly, against one of the worst defenses in all the NFL, Herbert was under the gun. That man was picking himself up off the ground all night long, and yet still found a way to stay in that football game, bring his team in close. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to allude to that interception that he threw down on the goal line. Kansas City took it back for a touchdown, right? One of the rookie corners. And that was probably the game decider. When all is said and done, that was the game decider. Yes, Justin Herbert looked down his receivers. That was what hurt him in that moment. Really, more than anything, it was a poor throw. Instead of throwing it to the outside where his guy could go and reach forward and make a play away from a defender, he threw it to the inside. So Herbert made some mistakes, but how long has Justin Herbert been playing football in the NFL? That's another thing we need to ask ourselves. You know, I've talked about it time and time again. We're always looking for the immediate, right? We're looking for a Patrick Mahomes to come in second year, go and get it done. We're looking for the Ben Roethlisbergers to come in right away, go and get it done. We're looking for this and that and the third. We forget that the Brett Favres of the world did not immediately start. Brett Favre played for the Atlanta Falcons, went to the Green Bay Packers, and that was when he had a very successful career. Let's not forget Bubby Brister. Played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Started right away. Had a huge lead on John Elway and the Denver Broncos. They end up losing that football game. Denver comes back. At the end of the game, Bubby Brister flustered, flailing his arms, telling everybody to get down, fumbles a bad snap. They can't win. Bubby Brister went on to say that he learned from more than eventually playing under John Elway than he did at any other time in the NFL. And let's not forget that Patrick Mahomes spent his first year behind Alex Smith in a football team that went 11-5. It is not that the Kansas City Chiefs were a bad football team. It's not that Alex Smith wasn't a really good quarterback, severely underrated in my estimation. It was that Patrick Mahomes was willing himself to play the waiting game. Justin Herbert is still going along. And if you don't think that Justin Herbert is a good quarterback, and situational football, and all those good things, then I want you to answer these questions. Would you take Justin Herbert or Derek Carr? Okay. Given what you saw from the Denver Broncos against Seattle, would you take Justin Herbert right now or Russell Wilson? Okay. Would you take Justin Herbert or Kyler Murray, given what you saw the Cardinals weren't able to do against the Chiefs? Okay. Were you more impressed with a Denver loss or a Seattle win? Because Denver played pretty bad in that football game and still had plenty of opportunities to win. So and then on top of that, Herbert's without his main guy, Keenan. So when you look at the Los Angeles Chargers, old school, what are you going to do, the fact of the matter is Herbert is doing a lot more with a lot less, very much like an Andrew Luck was at one point. For the most part, between these two teams, very clean game, not a lot of penalties. There were some turnovers, obviously, in that game, potential turnovers. I think the only thing that really bothered me in terms of the officiating was they definitely made sure that interception was reviewed, but they didn't make sure that fumble was reviewed. Now, looking at the replay, pretty obvious, not a fumble, right? But why not at least go and take a look at it? That's the only thing that really bothered me when all was said and done. In terms of how the game was played, in terms of, what we saw in Denver, right? Obviously with Seattle, a lot of offside plays, false starts, guys not lining up in position as a result, illegal formations. The Chargers played pretty clean in that regard. And Fitzmagic nailed it on the head, right? Playoff atmosphere, everybody knowing what was at stake, both teams understanding that this is a signal to who runs the AFC West still. Mahomes defending his territory, not just in Kansas City, but in the AFC West. You've got an up-and-comer in Justin Herbert. He's trying to prove that he's the guy now. He can't quite get it done, mainly because he's wincing through who knows what injury at this point. And they're fighting for supremacy. Oakland lost. Denver lost. Right now, it's about LA and KC. Who's going to take the charge? And to the Chiefs' credit, they played a full quarter game of football. I think at one point the Chargers had ran 59 plays to Kansas City's 39 plays. Normally, that's a show of dominance. Normally, that signals we're controlling the clock, we're dictating the pace, we're controlling every facet of this football game, and they probably should have been up by a couple of scores, but they weren't able to do it. Questionable decisions at the end of the first half, right? Obviously, don't want to give the ball to Mahomes. Herbert clearly wanted to go for it, but coaching decided, nope, we'll go ahead and take that 10-7 lead in the halftime. They obviously advanced it to 17-7, and they just couldn't get it done from there. You can blame defenses, you can blame play calling, but when all is said and done, the Kansas City Chiefs made just enough plays in that football game to win. Herbert and company, that one mistake on the goal line, which potentially could have put the game away, even though it would have only made it obviously only about 24-17. What does Mahomes and company do after that? Now, obviously, we saw what happened last year. Josh Allen scores. Kansas City gets the ball back. 13 seconds left. Mahomes and company, they go down the field, tie the game, get the ball in overtime. They score. when you have a quarterback like a Mahomes, the game is never really over. But the way that they were playing, for the most part, dictated that if they score there, it is going to be really difficult for Mahomes and company to really make up that ground. And unfortunately, a really bad throw by Herbert ended up hurting that football team. I don't think there's anybody walking around planet Earth right now with more hurt and regret than Justin Herbert. It's just the way that it is. He gutted it out. He's clearly one tough SOB. But unfortunately, sometimes being tough doesn't get you everything you need it to do. Look, LA scored late, okay? And it looked like on the onside kick, there was a good opportunity for him to recover that ball. Just weren't able to do it for whatever reason. Couple of timeouts left. If I'm the Chargers, I probably go ahead and kick that thing deep. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. We can all play Monday morning quarterback. It's really not that complicated. Obviously, it's going to be a big topic of discussion come tomorrow morning. When all is said and done, you have to give credit to the Kansas City Chiefs. As a lifelong Broncos fan, you've got to understand that everything everybody did in the AFC West was to compete with Kansas City. The Raiders, they went out, they got Devontae Adams. The Denver Broncos, they saw an opportunity to get Russell Wilson, they took it. It's just a point of fact. Until somebody dethrones Kansas City from the AFC West, they are still the team to beat in that subdivision of the AFC. And that's really all that it amounts to. We didn't see a very good showing from Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Patriots didn't show us anything further. The Jets are still who they are. The Dolphins, is what it is. They beat the Patriots, not that good. You start looking at the AFC as a whole, and you go, who can compete with Kansas City right now? The Browns? They beat a Carolina football team that really just beat themselves with turnovers, subpar play calling. You look at any other team in the AFC, who's out there? The Ravens, maybe. Lamar Jackson, people say he can't throw the ball deep, but he can. But even then, they played the Jets and only won 24-9. The Tennessee Titans, they got beat by the Giants, right? Late in that football game, the Giants scored. Took a 21-20 lead. Tennessee didn't figure out a way to score the ball late. So now what do? When all is said and done, it is still Kansas City's AFC. That's it. You might say it belongs to Burrow and the Bengals because of what they did last year in the playoffs, making it to the Super Bowl. But they also blew a 24-14 lead after I said the Super Bowl is going to boil down to this and this and this. And if somebody gets up, they're probably not going to give up that lead. Boy, was I wrong, because Stafford and company came back. What it really amounts to is a couple of simple things. Coaching, play calling, and really bad mistakes that end up biting you in the ass, and some really bad penalties. And of course, a tale as old as time, you don't turn the football over, because when you do, if the other team capitalize, it's over, amigo. And that's exactly what Kansas City did. They capitalized when it mattered the most with a very mediocre defense. It was a really good game to watch. I'm glad for the most part it lived up to the hype. Without Herbert, depending on that injury, I don't know how far the Chargers can go. I'm just keeping it really real. And Chase Daniels is, while he's still a player in the NFL, is already a part of, Monday night stuff, college football stuff. How much can you really rely on a guy that's basically already decided his career is going to be in television? You might say, well, Tom Brady did it. He signed that $300 million contract with Fox, yada, yada, yada. Chase Daniel's not Tom Brady. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Okay? Chase Daniel was the beneficiary of a Big 12 that was depleting already as it was before they left. And even then, when the big games happened, couldn't get it done. So the fact of the matter is simply this. If the Chargers do not have Keenan, if the Chargers do not have Herbert, they are in a world of shit. Especially if that defense can't figure out a way to create some plays on their own, which they tried to, and ultimately they did, just couldn't quite finish. I personally think that interception was an interception. I think we're being overly technical with the rules, but it is what it is in a day and age of replay and slow motion and everything else after the fact. What are you going to do? They can be over technical because of what replay gives us. In 1996, probably call an interception. LA maybe marches down and gets some points. They had field position on a couple of different occasions, but they just couldn't quite finish a job. And I will tell you the same that anybody else will. Separates good, great, and even better than great, phenomenal, is the ability to finish the game. You might be really good, but if you don't understand how to finish, well, that doesn't really matter, does it? All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. This is Late Night Sports Talk. This is Sync 57 Sports. And as always, take care of yourselves, and everybody stay safe.